broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Feel it. All right, that is Brandon Calhoun, a
Lost to Be Found
song, doing our intro. And welcome, AfterBuzzers, to another Battle Creek After Show. Tonight we're recapping Season 1, Episode 3, Man's Best Friend. And before we dive into that, I want to make sure you all are subscribed to us on YouTube, youtube.com/AfterBuzzTV, and find our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, you name it. Rate the app, rate the podcast, subscribe, comment. We want to hear what you guys think of all the episodes. I'm Lauren Salaun. You can find me on Twitter @Lauren Salaun, and I'm joined tonight by Gary Thomas to my left over here. Gary, how's it going?
Great, and you guys can find me on Instagram or Twitter @IamGaryThomas or at IamGaryThomas.com.
Awesome. All right. So let's dive into tonight's episode.
Such a good one.
Man's Best Friend. It opens with this Milt, Font, and Russ all at a school talking to some students about gun safety, being a police officer. I can imagine, you know, they're doing their kind of community outreach and safety presentation, and they bring their dog, who Font's like, kids love dogs, you know, we're going to bring him. And it's this like raggedy little terrier looking thing named Cookie that we learn, who when they're in the school, I wasn't totally sure if Cookie was Font's pet or something, or
exactly, that was definitely
not a canine.
That's not a police dog at all. That dog was ratty and dirty. Poor dog.
It was like a little like puppy you know, adopt from a shelter. It's not, that is, I mean, as we find out though, they leave that school and Cookie attacks a little girl walking down the street.
I'm sorry. I laughed so hard when he attacked the little girl. She just fell over.
Right on her face. Cookie attacks the girl, is going for the backpack, and I think it's a fluke the whole time while I'm watching, you know, which is kind of what everyone is thinking, that like, oh gosh, this dog, I thought you said like the canine department had this thing trained, what is going on? She's attacking this poor little girl, and she's going straight for the backpack, and they open up the backpack to find
heroin,
a ton of heroin,
a
kilo of heroin. And all in the background, this song "I'm a Big Bad Wolf" is coming on and stuff, and you know, it opened with drawings of what the you know, a big bad wolf is a metaphor for and stuff, so that was kind of a theme throughout. But Russ then brings this poor little girl who looks terrified into the classroom and starts questioning her. And as I'm watching this, I think I even turned around and said to you, like, wait, you can't be questioning a little girl without her parents. This girl's tiny, you know? And he and Milt kind of get into it about that. And Milt's saying, hey, guy, you know, the rules, we got to have parents around. You can't be doing this. And it'll be inadmissible, like, you know, if she's in custody. And Russ is like, oh, she's not in custody. We're still at the school. She can leave whenever she wants. And they're like, okay, come on. This girl's in 4th grade. She doesn't, she has no idea what her rights are. So I felt like with that, I mean, initially I thought they were going to slip up and not mention the whole thing about needing parents. And I was like, oh, are they going to like, slip up with their police knowledge?
The writers know.
Yeah, they're on top of it. They're on top of it.
One thing the writers did miss, I'll say this. When he's trying to comfort the little girl, like, you know, I'll get you a soda or a juice. First of all, I'm from the Midwest. We do not say soda in the Midwest. We say pop. Writers, get it right. He should have offered her a pop.
Snap. Yeah.
No, he should offer soda. We don't say soda. We don't say that. We say pop. That fizzly goodness that you put in your mouth is pop.
You're not saying soda. Oh,
No.
I didn't even, I mean, I'm a Californian. I did not catch that at all. If
Yes,
he had said
YouTubers.
pop, I would have thought it would have been weird.
YouTubers, for your knowledge, I am from Cleveland, so
Yeah.
I say pop.
He's got the insider perspective on our all things Midwest
Yes,
for us here on the panel.
I laughed in my head when they said, I was like, he's offering her soda. She doesn't know what that is.
Yeah, she doesn't know what soda is. Oh, I didn't even catch that. Good one. Yeah, so he's questioning her, and then they go, they're having this little chat. They come back, and of course, the mom and the principal are there. And are like, what the heck are you trying to do? Better not be questioning my daughter. We know our rights. No. I was so surprised how fast that mom got down there.
Yeah, my thing it made her look suspicious because she got on the defense so quickly. Because if a mom is not involved, she's like, tell him like what's going on, like
right.
But when she got on, that threw me all the way off in the whole episode because she was on it like, we know our rights. She's not saying anywhere. It's like, wow.
Yeah, this girl, 4th grade. So what is that? 9 years old, 10 years old. So this is a little kid, a little innocent baby kid. But yeah, so they think.
Yeah, so we think she's a little girl.
So we think. Yeah, exactly. So we then go into a scene with Gusewitz is talking to the team at the station, and she's like, okay, they've lawyered up, so we can't really pressure the girl anymore. We can't, unless we have some real evidence, we can't really do anything right now. And so they kind of start talking about the different, theories and who they should focus on. And Milt is suggesting that they stop focusing on the parents. He's like, maybe she found it at school or on the way to school. Maybe she was intercepted by drug dealers because they do that apparently, which is terrifying that they're intercepting little kids on their way to school to help them mule their drugs around. Scary.
That is super scary. And it's like, I thought that was a good perspective to bring that part of crime in there. I love how they put just an inkling of danger in all of it amongst the comedy, but it's just a little bit of danger in
it.
It
definitely felt this episode like there were some really intense moments. Yeah, which I feel like the past couple episodes have been very lighthearted almost, and the crime element was, comical or just created some suspense and moved the plot along. But this episode seemed to have a lot more intense moments.
I loved it.
Definitely. Yeah.
I loved it. It kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time.
It was great.
There was so much to this episode.
Yeah. So then they come up with this way to get more evidence, essentially. If they can't keep questioning the little girl, which I thought was super smart. They're like, okay, well, we suspect that drugs are happening in your household somehow, which clearly makes a case for a social worker needing to come check out to make sure everything's safe for your little girl.
Right. That's an awesome loophole, because I feel like if you call social services, the child protective services, they do automatically come out when the suspicion is there.
Right.
They don't waste any time because it's children. I was like, that's a really smart idea.
Yeah. And so they're doing this and going through with the social worker, and she's seeing all this stuff about how great, this little girl is, and this family looks very put together. She's like, oh, she's doing this and winning these awards and, a good little student. So her parents are doing something right. So I'm not seeing anything fishy here. And meanwhile, Milt is kind of playing Mr. PR with the family, talking about how talking up Russ and stuff. He really just wants to find who the bad guy is and who did this. We're really looking out for you. His typical Milt demeanor. Yeah, Milt. He's being very Milt. And they go into a bedroom and find this scuba lockbox that's sometimes drug dealers use them to keep their heroin dry or dry drugs dry.
Right.
Who knew? And so he breaks it open, and the social worker's kind of like, oh, well, locked isn't a hazard or a danger to kids, which that seems insane. If we're talking about the real world, I know, but that seems crazy that in the real world, if you found a box of locked up heroin, that wouldn't have been considered a danger to the child. Or
well, she paralleled it to a locked up gun. It's not a danger to the child according to their rules. Not saying that I necessarily believe that, but according to their rules.
But that can't be true, because a locked up gun, you can have a gun legally, whether it's locked up or not. You can't really have that much heroin in your house, whether it's locked up or not. So
she's saying that it's locked up. I can't check it. I can't
one's
aim for
legal
this.
and one's illegal. But that is the thing. If it is so locked up,
Yeah, she can't check it. And he's like, well, what if it was just happened to be opened?
Yeah, so he knocks it open. They just find it's books and a violin.
Her
and
little
collectibles.
Stuff. I know.
Her cute little kid stuff. And while Milt's in the other room, we see he notices something a little suspicious. Yeah, in a photo or something.
Such a good one.
I know.
They're so good at the little things that you can miss so easily.
Those little nuggets. And we learned that Joey Ferraro is a cop, and he is the uncle of this little girl. And so they were so quick. I thought this was interesting because they were so quick to assume that Joey was the bad guy in this. Like, I get the connection because he would have access to that amount of heroin, you know, in evidence or something, and he could decide he wants to
or just being a
turn
crooked
and do
cop.
it himself. Yeah, being a crooked cop. But I feel like they were so quick to jump to that and just assume he was involved in a bad way, because I feel like when you're a police officer, and it seems like they work in the same department.
Yeah, he's a police officer in Battle Creek.
Yeah, he's a police officer in Battle Creek, so they know him. You know, you would like assume that your fellow cops are innocent, I would think.
Yeah, you're right. I think they jumped to conclusion
It was
just
so
a
fast.
bit quick.
Yeah.
They didn't just bring him into question and make me say, hey, how close are you to her? Maybe you can get her to talk.
Right.
But they just
they jumped right to it. I was like, okay, I feel like if you're going to confront another cop about possibly being involved in like using kids to mule drugs around, you're maybe going to like do it with a little bit more finesse or get a little bit more evidence.
But see, that's the Battle Creek way.
That's the Battle Creek way.
They always jump to
your
conclusion.
face.
Like, they always jump right on top of a story, and that's
Milt's
what they
like,
stick
whatever,
to.
I don't care who I piss off today.
Right. They just
Doesn't
jump on the
matter.
story, and like, I feel like most of the time in this shows, Milt is half right and half wrong, and then Russ is half right, half wrong. Like, that's how they balance each other out. But they jump on a story, a theory, so to speak, a theory right away.
They
jumped
jumped
go for it.
fast. I thought it was so funny during that exchange how they find out that
Russ
wasn't invited to this barbecue that everyone else was invited to, and he's like after him as a suspect, like partly fueled by that.
Right.
Like, what the heck? You're not inviting me to your barbecue.
But you noticed when we were watching, I laughed immediately because I knew it was going to come back around.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming back around. He's like, oh, yeah, you know, he was at a barbecue the other day. I thought you would have been there.
Yeah.
Milt being Milt.
Of course,
like,
Milt was invited.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone was invited.
Oh, it's so funny. So Joey seems pretty convincing that it's not him. And I mean, I kind of believed him at that point. But the thing we've learned, I think, with
I was going to say, like,
with Battle Creek is that when they're giving us suspects, usually everyone they present to us is involved in some way. You know, it's not going to be a complete red herring where it's that person's totally off scot-free, you know?
That's what I like, too. Like, there's no one you can really believe because, like, the way they write the show is always like somehow this person is looped in. They're right about this person somehow. They're not just bringing this person on for any old reason.
Right. It's not going to be a complete fake out most of the time. So, you know, on the one hand, I think the way he was portraying it, you know, the actor and stuff and playing it, it seemed very believable. And I was like, oh, maybe he could be like not the bad guy. But I'm like, no, they don't do that.
No,
so
they don't.
We've learned that this far from the writers. They don't do that. It's gonna turn out, there's gonna be some payoff.
There's something about this person that's why you're there.
Yeah. And so we then see that Jay Cox, the other Aaron, is at an FBI training, and she's at a seminar all about lying. And they're talking about all those like little micro expressions and stuff. Like if somebody does, their face will automatically do it if they're lying, which I don't know how accurate all that stuff is. I know I've seen it in so many different crime shows. So I've always been so curious to try and learn that. So then you can like,
So I can
figure out,
sit there and stare in people's eyes.
Right?
Say,
Figure out if people are lying, see them flinch the wrong way.
I can hold that back if I saw you flinch. I'm like, liar.
I know, right? If you saw it, you're like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. But anyway, so we see her there at this training. And on the one hand, you're like, oh, cool. They have access to all these FBI resources now because Milt has his satellite office there. Okay, interesting. But then we see her look up Ken Bramberg, who was Milt's old boss that we saw in episode 1, being like, oh, I'm so happy this guy's out of here. So we always knew that we were going to come back to that at some point. And so she's there to kind of bump into Ken and find out some information. And she bumps into him and basically starts asking, okay, so what's the deal with this guy Milt? I think he's kind of a phony. So what's the scoop? Why'd he get demoted?
I thought that was so bold because she never knows. You know, it's like when you meet somebody for the first time, you kind of just don't say stuff like that. Like,
well, and she kind of covers it by saying, oh, well, you were probably his best friend, you know, or something here. So I'm not asking. I shouldn't be asking you.
I guess I would want to cover my tracks because somehow this could get back to Milt, and then he knows I'm like kind of like snooping about him. I don't really like, you know.
Exactly. So, Yeah, so he says great things about Milt. You know, I was so sad to see him leave, all this stuff. But then, like, we zoom in and see he flinched a little bit, so it means he's lying. And so she knows there's more going on there. And back at the station, meanwhile, they're still questioning Joey, and Funk and Font go and search his place, and they find nothing.
Well, first of all, Funkhauser was hilarious.
He was very funny.
This whole Shailene thing is so freaking funny. But I love that they always do something great. Even though they're very goofy characters, they always find something just so detrimental in the whole storyline for the case that they kind of make them great characters too.
Right.
You know?
And I feel like everybody ends up having some sort of, you know, really lucrative role in solving the case. You know, is really integral in piecing it all together. So that's fun to see. That's not like one, even though Milt is like the superstar, you know, he's not always the one to solve it. Everyone has a part, and that's kind of great. Like, the teamwork is great. Yeah, and like we saw Holly again, like breaking another case this week.
The bomb. Like, she always has like her part of the story of the case is always like the game changer.
Right.
They
Which
make
is
her
so interesting. I don't know what is her role exactly.
The game changer.
The game changer.
That's what I was going to call her, Holly, the game changer, because she's always like that one who finds.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I have an idea, and then she goes and pieces it all together. But I'm so curious because she's not out in the field with them.
She just hears everything, and I think that's.
But she's very.
I think that's a good thing.
On top
though.
Of everything.
That's good though. Sometimes women are like that. They just process everything, and it comes. It's like, wait a minute, you didn't think about this. She hears everything.
Yeah, she hears everything.
All.
So I'm curious, even what her position there is, because she always seems to figure stuff out and be very detective-y.
You called her a secretary.
Well, that's what I know. That's what it seemed like she was doing, like the office manager.
Secretaries don't
Not
crack
the
cases.
Secretary. She seemed like kind of the office manager type person, which I don't think she is, but we don't see her being involved in any of the cases aside from just like the, you know, water cooler chit chat in the office.
She can't. Well, you can't just go into like evidence and everything. You're just a secretary,
right? Oh, and by the way, that seemed super weird to me. I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but that seems so weird. For one, I mean, I've watched enough crime TV to know how real police stations work. Just kidding.
Right.
But you can't. She walks by the guy who's like guarding the evidence room.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
You know, usually I feel like from what I've seen on TV, which means it's probably true, you have to like sign in, show ID to the person to go look at evidence. She's just like, hey, what's up, buddy? Pulls the keys out of her pocket, unlocks it, and then goes in and starts doing tests on the drugs.
Like, if you're not in the lab, I don't think you just cut open a bag of drugs and just start testing under the counter. Like, that was a little bit far-fetched.
With the last episode, with her getting the husband's ring out of evidence and giving it back to the wife, like, someone needs to put a better lock on this evidence.
Well, now
room.
In this episode they mentioned they do inventory, and then, you know, how did you just take the ring last time? Wouldn't that be a part of inventory?
Yeah, it just seems interesting that, I mean, I trust Holly completely, but it seems funny that the evidence room is so loosely guarded. Right. But maybe it's open. Back to their not having resources for anything. Nobody can even guard the evidence. You know, the guy was going on his break. Anyway, back to where we were. Milt has his drug dealer theory. He thinks that, you know, he says, hey, you know, I've worked on a case before with some Dominican drug dealers, and they sometimes, you know, if the cops were on their tail or something, they would toss drugs just wherever they were, in the bushes or whatever, so that they don't have the drugs when the cops catch them, but they know where to go back and find them. So he's thinking maybe this little girl found the drugs on her way home. And yeah, so that whole thing seems pretty plausible. And of course, since Milt was involved in this case before, you know, maybe something's on to, you know, maybe he's got something.
Like I say, always half right.
Yeah, but I would think that because he's in Battle Creek, you know, it seems like such a random place then for these Dominican drug dealers to be, but who knows how widespread they are.
Well, he learned that information from Detroit, you know, working in Detroit.
Yeah.
That's where and then he's saying, you know, maybe this is the plausible thing in Battle Creek too.
Yeah, exactly. So Jay Cox comes back from the FBI training and spills the beans to Russ, who we then find out, well, of course, Russ sent her to the training so she could get some dirt on Milt. You know, he's still not so sure about Milt, and she tells him everything about what Ken said, but saying that, you know, I'm pretty sure he was lying though. And she asks him if his suspicion has anything to do with Holly, and Russ says no, but he does that same little flinchy thing, and so
I'm like so on the fence about it because I feel like I couldn't really tell that much if he really flinched.
It was like the tiniest little flinch.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I feel like she's like running with that little bit of, I mean, she didn't actually get trained on it. She just like listened to it, you know? But I thought it was cute. Like, she's just like, oh, okay. You know, she's like...
She was just like,
she's jumping to conclusions with stuff. But I think it does a little bit have something to do with Holly, because earlier in the beginning of the episode, we see, you know, she brings something up and Milt's like, oh, that's a great idea, Holly. You know, so he's kind of like recognizing her.
Holly always defends Russ too, though. So completely. I'm not sure. You know, then we see Holly over there spreading gossip too.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm not sure she likes Milk. I'm sure she likes Russ.
Yeah. But she always is very open about talking about how handsome Milt is. And so I would see if he has a crush on her, or if Russ has a crush on her, him, you know, being a little put off by that. But no, I think she full on has the hots for Russ. And soon enough, we will see that all transpire. I
know that's coming. Like, it has to come at some point. If they don't give me that this season, I'm going to be very upset. Oh, very upset.
I hope they would. At least a little something. Maybe like an accidental kiss. Well, not an accidental kiss, but like a, oops, we kissed.
Right. Like, you know, he's saving her and she's excited, you know. So she kisses him.
Yeah, exactly. So... we then see them do a little sting on the drug dealers. They find some alley where, you know, the cops will bust them at one end and kind of like corner these drug dealers into running this way. And we see them toss drugs, just like Milt's theory. And they catch these drug dealers. And I thought it was so another Milt moment where they catch these guys and Milt starts speaking Spanish. Like, of course he knows Spanish. And he's like, oh yes, I was fluent in 3 different languages when I was growing up, because wherever country I lived in with my family, neighbored
bike there.
Yeah, neighbored on 3 different countries, so I know them. My Spanish isn't as good. And he calls the guys Cubans, and he's like, oh, they're Cuban, definitely, from the accent. And the guy's like, no, we're not Cuban. Like, what are you talking about? Not Cuban. And he's like, no, definitely Cuban. And so the guy spills the beans about being Dominican. Right. He's like, no, we're Dominican, and which was so smart of Milt to play dumb like that. Yeah, always one step ahead.
He got them good.
Got them good. So they're questioning this guy, and he's pretty much not gonna, you know, he doesn't give up anything. And so Milt sets up an appointment or a meeting with his confidential informant. And from episodes before, we've seen that Teddy the snitch is Russ's confidential informant, who's like this chubby, long-haired pothead, essentially. And Milt and Russ are having a little workout. You know, Milt's like, oh, I want to, you know, give you an update, but we need to work out and we're going to have a busy day, so we might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone, you know? And
Russ is out there with a big gulp.
Yeah, with his huge soda. And so he's like, oh, I have like my informant going to give us kind of the download on these Dominican drug dealers. And this girl, this like gorgeous girl, comes out, and we learn that she's a cheerleader for the Detroit Pistons. And Russ is like, of course your informant is a super hot cheerleader.
Right. He's just like, is that a problem? He's like, no, but my informant is ugly.
He's a fat dude that eats Cheetos all the time. I don't know. But yeah, so she gives them a little bit of info and says that the last mule, you know, the last child mule who was transporting drugs around for these Dominican drug dealers was 16 years old. And when kind of word got out, you know, that this kid was doing that, she was thrown off of a building.
Right. You know, so, for either losing the drugs
I think.
Losing drugs.
Yeah, I think it was losing the drugs. Thrown off a building. So just kind of a warning, like, hey, these guys don't care about if kids are involved. Like, they'll sacrifice anybody to keep kind of, you know, keep the word off the street about who they are. So yeah, so then we see Gus Gusowitz call Jaycox in and kind of is like, okay, I know you're spying. What's going on? You know, what did you find out? And so this is when they all start to gossip about what was going on. She's like, oh, I think that Milt had an affair with his boss's wife. Holly. And that's what happened. Yeah.
Here's Holly throwing, she's the hero I see on throwing out her theory, and it happens to just be something good.
Yeah. And that's it. What do you think? Do you think that Milt... Do you think there's what do you think that Milt is really trying to cover up?
I don't know, because here's the thing, when Holly, not Holly, but when Aaron confronts him and he doesn't twitch.
I know.
But also,
I just think.
And I was just like, at first I'm like thinking to myself, he's really well trained in the FBI. He probably was just like, going on. But then when he was speaking to the child in the family, he said, I never lie.
Yeah.
So I was just like,
no, I think he's just tricking us. I think he's tricking us. I think he went to that FBI lying seminar class so many times. He knows how to not lie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he said he never lies.
I don't know.
I'm so confused.
I don't think Milt's as good as we all think. I mean, I think he's a really good guy, but I think he's got some secrets.
We see that in episode 1, with the whole conversation before they bust in the door about being naive. We know that Milt has some other side that we're going to see at some point. But I just don't know. I was so like, I didn't want to believe him. Like, no, Milt didn't do that. But he doesn't lie. He didn't twitch. So
yeah, and he seems so believable when she confronts him. He's like, gets teary. I'm so ashamed for what I did.
With Lori.
Yeah, Lori. It wasn't Lori's fault. So either that's his cover story, and if it's, I don't know. But
I don't know either.
Yeah, so we're back with the parents questioning the little girl. I think her name was Katori. And this time it's so different because they are there without their lawyer, and they're encouraging her to speak, and Milt's giving this big speech about integrity, and we're really, looking to find, the evidence and stuff. And they encourage the daughter, not to say something, and she says she won't say anything, which is such a giveaway that she does know something,
Yeah, that was it, because, after finding out about the 16-year-old, they took that to the parents and, kind of convinced the parents with this, we need to, protect your daughter.
Yeah.
And it just got so much better, the episode. They started really questioning her.
Yeah.
And she said she won't. It was like,
yeah,
wow.
I can, but I won't. I know. She was such a, kind of a dark twist on this little girl we've seen just so petrified the whole time.
Right.
Like,
she was so tough. Like, it was
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. So then they're back questioning this drug dealer. And I thought it was so smart, such a good tactic of them to be like, hey, good news. We're going to let you go, and we'll drive you back ourselves, and we'll be smiling and hugging and waving. But, we won't, obviously you won't have told us anything, but, and then the guy's like, okay, nope. If you drop me off all smiley like that, while all my rest of my guys are locked up still, everyone's going to think I snitched, and I'm going to get killed, essentially. Basically. Which is so interesting. Not to talk about another show, but I'll talk about another show. In The Closer, she does that same exact move. Like, they drive back this one drug dealer and back to his people, and keeping the other guys locked up, and he gets killed. So that's like, I guess that's a real tactic.
It's an automatic assumption.
It seems
are you going to go and tell them, like, I did snitch? No. So they're going to assume they're just going to take you out.
Right. Yeah. So that's smart. So they get him to kind of fess up something, and they are then at the big dealer's house to, get more, they've got a lead from that guy. And I love how they're at the front door knocking. They're like, oh, we're your new neighbors from downstairs. We've got brownies and, and a plant for you. And the guy's obviously, the guy tries to escape, so they catch him. They find all this heroin in his place. Case closed. They're back at the department celebrating. And I love, did you hear how they were like, hey, Font, thanks for the brownies. I loved that. That was so smart of them to throw in there, because as everyone remembers from last week, Font now, he has a medical marijuana card, and he uses his weed for migraines and stuff. And and of course, he's the one who brought brownies to the company party. So I thought that was pretty funny. So Joey and Russ have this little kind of warm moment about, they apologize. Everything seems okay. Maybe Joey's not the suspect, because they found the drugs at this other guy's house. And then later we find out that the heroin was not a match. So they caught this bad drug dealer, but guess what? The little girl's drugs that she had in her backpack were not the same drugs.
Right.
So they caught a bad guy, but the real bad guy's still out there.
Exactly.
So then they go to the medical examiner's office. And I thought this whole scene was super weird because they're at the medical examiner's place, like where the dead bodies are kept, like at the morgue essentially, and Russ rolls out a body and is like nailing into this little girl.
Well,
like,
that's what he said earlier. He's like, it's time to scare her. We can't get through to her. We can't break her. We can't reason with her. It's time to try to scare her.
That just seems so over the line. I feel like she's like 9 years old, 10 years old, and he's like, this is your fault.
I know.
Whoever you're protecting, they do this sort of thing, and they're killing people like this. You're doing this, you know?
That's the twist of the show. I love that it was such intensity in this scene, such intensity in this episode. It's getting so good. It's keeping you really attentive to what's going on.
I was just like, oh my gosh. The mom tried to object a few times, but the dad's like, no, let him question her. I'm like, really? This poor girl is getting terrified looking at dead bodies?
Well, I think the desperation kicked in. They want to save their daughter, and she's not telling.
No,
like, you could die.
Right, because they tell her about the 16-year-old getting thrown off the building. But my goodness, it just seems so like such desperate measures to get this poor little tiny girl to talk. She just seems so cute and little.
I mean, sometimes, I thought that was a little crazy. I'm not sure if police would really do that.
Yeah, I doubt it.
It was. I loved it. And just the intensity in the scene and acting. It was just so great.
I know. Yeah. So that was super intense. I thought it was a little weird. And then he full on arrests her.
She still wouldn't speak, which was like, wow, we brought you to the edge of fear. And
so then we cut to, Funk and Funk's saying like, gosh, like, what does this become? We're arresting like little kids. Goodness. And then Holly cracks the case.
As usual.
Just like last week, which is kind of awesome. And goes in and does her whole drug testing with the vinegar and discovers that
a bag of heroin
was in fact baking soda. So somebody swapped out the heroin. It was from a case like 6 months ago or something. And when you were little, did you used to like make the baking soda and vinegar like
volcanoes,
little volcanoes or bombs or stuff? I know.
Who did it?
I was thinking that. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be baking soda.
I didn't catch it right when she was testing it, but
because at first when she brought the vinegar in there, I was so confused. Like, what are you doing? And then she starts like cutting stuff open. I'm like, there we go.
Ripping open heroin.
There we go. Yeah. So then this puts Joey back in the hot seat about, being the one who had the drugs. And Gusewitz approaches him, is really like pretty much calls him on it. Like, I know you stole that evidence, those drugs out of evidence, and I'm going to give you a second chance. Which I thought was so interesting, like so compassionate of her. I don't think that would ever happen in the real world. Like, I guess they don't have clear evidence that he really did take it.
Because she said, if he has been this smart this far, he's definitely covered his tracks. There's no way to figuring this out. So this is the only approach.
Like, maybe if I just, go approach him with total honesty about it and some compassion with, I'll let you off the hook and give you a second chance, then...
Trick him.
Yeah, and he didn't bite for it, but he does when he leaves. And she kind of did say, actually, before I get into that, like, you owe me, which I didn't know if there was more to that or what was going on. But, he leaves still denying it and says, if you were giving me a second chance and if I did do it, I would be incredibly grateful, which I feel like that was kind of a tender moment, because on the one hand, you're like, well, is Gusewitz completely trying to just trick him, or... Yeah. Is she like, maybe that's like a softer side of her.
Left you thinking that maybe she is going to let him go, I guess.
I don't know.
But I was like, if you've held on to your story this long and your niece has held on to this story for this long, why did you even say that? You should have kept denying it and just saying, you know what, you got a heart or whatever, but it's not true. I still don't have it, because she had no real evidence.
Yeah. So you still deny that? Totally. And... later, but she, knows that maybe that kind of is gonna push him to do something else. Mm-hmm. So they follow him, and he picks up Katori, his niece, as she's walking. Which in that part, because somebody was bugged. I don't know.
He was in his cop car.
Oh, okay, so they just had it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Duh. But that to me, so he full on pretty much confesses to her and says, it's all over. Thank you, for doing this, like all this stuff. And I thought the way that he was talking to her, and even back when Russ was really like pressuring her to get answers, I feel like they're talking to this 10-year-old girl in such a grown-up way. When he was talking to her, it was like to a peer or something. Thank you for doing this. I know how hard it must have been for you. And she's like, oh, what are you going to do next? And he's like using all these like these weird ways that you would not tell a 10-year-old like what your plan is or how you're feeling. It seemed just too grown up of a conversation to have with her.
The way they were speaking to her was definitely like she was advanced, or just the relationship. Maybe it was just the dynamic of their relationship they were trying to display.
Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, she did it all because she loves her uncle and doesn't want him to get in trouble and stuff. And
which is crazy. Like 10 years old going to battle for your uncle that hard. That's crazy. Like that, they must have like a really good relationship or something.
I know. Yeah. So because he was trying to cover up a gambling habit essentially, and so they wait to arrest him until she's gone, which I thought was another, again with Goosewitz, another like tender moment. She doesn't want the little girl to like see one of her heroes getting arrested or think that she was to blame for it. And yeah, but also from his perspective, this guy Joey, who has been very careful, as they've said the whole time. Hi, wouldn't you think maybe don't confess to the crime while you're in a police vehicle?
We've already learned that criminals are not that smart.
I know, but when you're a cop who's a criminal too, like, they've got like lapel cams, their cars have camera, like
completely rigged up. Like, why wouldn't you just walk her in the park or something and just do this?
Like maybe wait till you're off the clock, bro.
Right. Not even in your own car, just like away from things.
Yeah, it
or how about
so
never
dumb,
speaking about it ever again?
Right? Be like, hey, what you did for me? Cool, thanks.
Right. High five.
There you go. That seems like it'd be enough. Anyway. They catch him. He's the bad guy. Enough said. Russ doesn't really buy the whole affair thing. So he approaches Ken Bramberg, which I feel like that's super close for them all to be. Aren't they in different, isn't the FBI main area not in?
It was in Detroit.
It's just in Detroit. How far is?
I have no idea.
Sorry, everyone who's going to think we are idiots.
I know a lot about that area, but I have never heard of Battle Creek until now. And so
it must just be a little.
The whole Kellogg's thing, don't go to battle on us. I just don't know how far, because it's a lot of.
I know, we should know that. Sorry, everybody. Comment on YouTube. How far is Battle Creek from Detroit?
Detroit is similar to LA. It has a lot of small suburbs. So it's a lot to know where everywhere is.
Exactly. It just seems so convenient that they're all so close to the FBI. But anyway, so it's TV. That's right. It's not the real world. So Russ approaches Ken and says pretty much to come clean, and like, I don't believe the affair thing. And he says that the truth is worse, essentially. And they were serving a fugitive a warrant, and I guess Milt jumps in front of two bullets and saves Ken's life, essentially. But they were both awarded with an award for bravery or valor, whatever it is. And when he says, but only one of us deserved it, Milt, obviously, and his wife, who I'm assuming is Lori, came to the award ceremony, and she like got this twinkle in her eye for Milt, and then never looked at her husband the same. And he found her diary that said she pictured him when she was having sex with her husband, sort of thing. I'm sorry, first of all, what 60-year-old woman keeps a diary? Really? Do many?
It's kind of like the Titanic type thing.
I'm like, who is this woman keeping a diary? Anyway, so they ended up, their marriage fell apart, and then this guy Ken was trying to have Milt transferred over and over again. It wouldn't work, but then somebody higher up had him transferred. So there's still the mystery of why the heck is Milt there and what happened. And I think Milt is covering up with a big lie with the whole affair thing and letting people believe that.
I'm waiting for it.
I know. I'm so curious to see what this bomb's going to be. So we end with Milt and is with Katori saying, she did the right thing, and, that your parents are being supportive, like all this stuff. And it's a really sweet moment. And she asks, like, okay, well, then why did you arrest him? He's like, well,
he's not my uncle.
Not my uncle, girl.
I loved it. It was a good last line.
Yeah, it was a great way to end, and I think this episode was good. I agree. Like on the whole, it definitely had the crime elements were more intense this week for sure.
Definitely like that.
I do think those few moments, like when they're at the morgue and in the car with the little girl, were a little weird. Like they were, I think Russ was a little too hard on her in that situation. And then I think the way that the Uncle Joey was talking to her was way too grown up. So those were the only 2 times I kind of got pulled out of the story. But other than that, it was good.
This was a great episode. I really like this one.
Yeah,
really,
it was
really
good.
Like this one.
It was good. So, did we miss anything? I think we kind of hit
everything.
all the moments. So why don't we launch into a few predictions to wrap us up? Yeah.
There we go.
Woo.
And now, your AFTERBUZZ TV
All right.
predictions.
I don't have too many. I really think, and maybe this isn't so much as a prediction as it is a hope. I want to see Russ or Holly make a move on each other.
Don't we all? I think
Holly
wants to
is
see
going
this.
to. Or maybe Russ is, because now he's a little jealous, we saw. But that's one of my hopes for next week, is that some more heat turns up. Because it's clear that other people think that they have crushes on each other.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah, so that's like one of my big ones. I also want to get another nugget. I feel like we might see Ken again next week. What do you think? Maybe get some more juice into Milt's backstory through Ken?
I think that is my overall prediction right there. I just want to see the backstory of Milt. We're going to find out something.
Yeah, I want to find out. There's something juicy back there. Yeah, and so as we saw with the, next week, we have the FBI canine drug dog come in. And so it's like a dog versus dog. They've got Cookie, the real scrappy looking Battle Creek dog,
Cookie.
and then the FBI
Cookie.
dog, which I thought was interesting that this one was called Man's Best Friend, and we've got dogs again. Maybe Cookie did such a good job this episode, she got a callback. Second episode.
I'm excited to see the little bet that they have. It's going to be a different side of Milk, so finally some fun between the two.
Yeah, whose dog is going to solve the crime, essentially. I think that'll be a really fun episode.
It's going to be super fun.
Yeah.
I'm ready to see that interaction.
I think it'll definitely be higher comedy than we had this week, too.
This was intense.
With 2 dogs. Totally.
Yeah.
Dogs are funny, right?
But I love the intensity. I did.
Oh, yeah.
Really
the intensity was good. I liked it, too, because I feel like the last few have been more comedy. So it was fun to have a harder hitting one.
Definitely.
All right. I think we covered it all. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Be sure to check back with us next week. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube, youtube.com/AfterBuzzTV. Comment about the show on Twitter. Hit us up.
Please.
#ABTV Battle Creek. We want to know what you guys thought of the episodes and what you think is going to happen next. I'm Lauren Salaun. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, at Lauren Salaun. And Gary, where can everyone find you?
Of course, I am Gary Thomas on Instagram and Twitter, and I am GaryThomas.com.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.